Alright, the purpose of this video is to demonstrate for my students how to add fractions with unlocked denominators. Now, my students will be required to complete a homework activity similar to the one that I am demonstrating with. Now, the first fraction that we have is 1/2 plus 7/10. Now, I purposefully chose for this format to have the fractions listed vertically because it just makes it easier for some students to add fractions. It also gives them enough workspace that they can find the correct sum. You will often find fractions that you have to add in a horizontal format, but since a lot of my students are being just introduced to adding fractions with unlocked denominators, I chose the vertical format, but there is a horizontal one that exists, just so you know. Now here we have 1/2 plus 7/10. Now, in order to add these two fractions together, we have to have a common denominator. And whenever I'm adding my fractions together, I always want to use the least common denominator because it just makes it a whole lot easier if you wind up having to simplify your fraction, your sum. Now, when I look at 1/2 and 7/10, I know that 10 is going to be my least common denominator. 10 is a multiple of 2, and 2 is a factor of 10, so I know it's going to work. Now notice how I have equal signs here. The reason I put those little equal signs is because I'm actually going to come up with a fraction that is equivalent to 1/2 and a fraction that is equivalent to 7/10. Now, this 2, I'm going to make it a 10. And what do I have to multiply 2 by to get 10? 2 times 5 gives us 10. So if I multiply my denominator by 5, I must multiply my numerator by 5. And 1 times 5 is 5. So 1/2 is equivalent to 5/10. The numbers may be different, a 1 here, a 5 here, a 2 here, a 10 here, yet the value is exactly the same. Here I have 7/10, and because my denominator is 10 already, I'm not going to have to change my numerator at all. And just to keep things orderly, I'll just extend that line. So now I have 5/10 plus 7/10. I'm going to tell you right off the bat that the denominators do not add. The denominators do not add. So even though I have a 10 here and a 10 here, I'm not going to add the denominators together and give me 20. I'm just going to say 10. My numerators, that's what I'm going to add. Those are what's going to be added. 5 plus 7 equals 12. Now here I have an improper fraction. An improper fraction is any fraction where the numerator, in this case the 12, is larger than your denominator, in this case the 10. So I have 12/10. I do require my students to simplify their fractions in simplest terms. The way that you would simplify a fraction that is an improper one, just think division. This line here signifies the operation of division. So 12 divided by 10. Now, I like doing the mental math just because it makes it go by a whole lot quicker. But for those students who are having trouble, one thing that you could do is get you some scratch paper or somewhere else. I'll just move over here and I'll just say 10 will go into 12 one time. And 1 times 10 is 10. 12 take away 10 is 2. So I have 1 and a remainder of 2. So 12/10 will be turned into the mixed number 1 because 10 went into 12 one whole time. And my remainder is now my numerator, 2. And then my denominator is still going to be 10. I'm not changing my denominator. Now, notice that I do not have a simplified fraction. I did convert this improper fraction to a mixed number, but I still do not have a reduced fraction to simplest terms. So I'm going to bring my whole back here, the 1, and then I know that 2 and 10, the greatest common factor of 2 and 10 is 2. 2 will go into 2 one time, and 2 will go into 10 5 times. Now, Notice that I have ample opportunities to demonstrate how to do this because I understand that sometimes it takes a while to get all that. You've got least common denominators where you're coming up with the least common multiple. You've got to come up with greatest common factors to simplify. I mean, there's a lot going on. So we'll do a few more examples. Here I have 3/9 plus 1/6. Now when I look at 9 and 6, I know that the least common multiple of 9 and 6 is 36. So I'm going to go ahead and write down 36 as my least common denominator. Now here I know that 9 will go into 36 4 times. 9 times 4 gives us 36. So if I multiply the denominator by 4, I have to multiply the numerator by 4. 3 times 4 equals 12. And here I know 6 times 6 gives me 36. If I multiply the denominator by 6, I have to multiply the numerator by 6. 1 times 6 gives me 6. So there I have come up with equivalent fractions. 12/36 for 3/9, 6/36 for 1/6. Now all I have to do is just add my numerators together. So if I have 12 and 6, that's going to give me 18. So 12 plus 6 is 18. And then my denominator, I'm not going to say 36 plus 36 gives me 72. We don't do that. We just simply write down 36. We just write down the denominator. We don't add the denominator. We only add the numerators. Now 18 over 36, I need to simplify that down. And I know that the greatest common factor of 18 and 36 is 18. I know that 18 will go into 18 one time, and I know 18 will go into 36 two times. So 3/9 plus 1/6 equals 1/2. All right, let's do another example. Here I have 1/6 plus 1/2. This one's going to be fairly simple. I know that my least common denominator is going to have to be 6. 6 is a multiple of 2 and is a multiple of itself. I know that 2 times 3 gave me 6. So if I multiply 2 by 3, I have to multiply 1 by 3. So 1 times 3 will give me 3. And I'm just going to bring this one over because 6 times 1 gave me 6. 1 times 1 gave me 1. Now, I want to pause for just a moment to explain something. If you're sitting there at home or in the classroom and you're wondering, how in the world do I know that 2 times 3 gave me 6? Well, if I know that 6 is the greatest common factor for both 6 and 2, I have to ask myself, what number, what factor do we multiply 2 with to get 6? You could kind of look at it another way too. You could think 6 divided by 2 gives me 3. So 2 times 3 gave me 6. That's how I know what to multiply my denominator by. And whenever I multiply my denominator by, I must multiply my numerator by that same number. So here I'm just going to simply write down 1 plus 3 equals 4. And I'm just going to bring my denominator down, 6. Now I need to simplify that down. Now, one of the things I do want to point out to my students is be sure you leave yourself enough room to simplify down. And if you simplify down using the greatest common factor, you're not going to have to write down simplify, simplify, simplify. You're just going to have one more fraction to write down. Now, I know my greatest common factor of 4 and 6 is 2. 2 will go into 4 2 times. 2 will go into 6 3 times. So 1/6 plus 1/2 equals 2/3. I'll do this example, then I think I might stop. Here I have 2/5 plus 1/2. I know that my least common multiple, which will be my least common denominator for 5 and 2, is going to be 10. What do I have to multiply 2 by to get 10? Well, I know that 10 divided by 2 gives me 5. I know that 2 times 5 gives me 10. So 1 times 5 gives me 5. And I know that 5 times 2 gives me 10 because 10 divided by 5 equals 2. 5 times 2 equals 10, so 2 times 2 equals 4. So 4 plus 5 gives me 9, and I just bring my denominator 10 down. Now this one, 9 over 10, I do not have any common factors other than 1, so it is already in simplest form. I think I'll go ahead and do just one more. I'll do this one. Now if you're wondering what happened to 5, well, I didn't have enough room for the frame here, so I had to cut 5 out, and so let's go to 6 here. All right, we have 5/8 plus 1/2. Now with this one, I'll put my equal signs up and get ready to do my equivalent fraction. I know my least common multiple, which will be my least common denominator for 8 and 2, is 8. So I'll put 8 here and 8 here. What do I multiply 2 by to give me 8? Well, if I don't know, I could think 2 will go into 8 4 times. So 2 times 4 gives me 8. So if 2 times 4, I'm going to say 1 times 4 also. 1 times 4 gives me 4. Now 8 times 1 gave us 1, because 8 will go into itself 1 time, and 5 times 1 will give me 5. Now 5 plus 4 equals 9, and then just bring my denominator down, 8. Now a moment ago when we did this one, I showed how you could, find a scratch place or something and divide 10 into 12, your numerator by your denominator. I know that 8's not going to go into 9 any more times than just 1, so I'm going to try this method. I know that 8 will go into 9 one time, and then I know 9 take away 8 gives me 1, and then I just bring my denominator over, 1 and 1/8. Now that's how I did it. If you need to, I'm speaking to my students now, if you need to do a division problem, if you need to go somewhere, maybe on a scratch sheet of paper and say 8 go into 9 one time, 1 times 8 equals 8, 9 times 1 take away 8 gives me 1, and then say that 8 went into 9 one whole time, so that's where we have this one whole, and then we have a remainder of 1, and that remainder becomes our numerator, and then 8 remains as the denominator. If you need to do it that way, that's fine. Whatever you need to do to come up with the right answer. Now I do want to see your work when I check your assignment. I am speaking to my students. I do want to see that you've actually converted your fractions into equivalent fractions with least common denominators. And then I want to see, if you need that you simplified your fractions. I don't want to see fractions where the numerator and denominators still have a factor in common other than 1. And try to be as neat as you can. Now, when you have paper and pencil, it's a whole lot easier to be neater than when you have a mouse, and there you go. Thank you. I hope that this helped.